Hi everyone, welcome to the prep video for April's Halloween Addicts Anonymous class, which is Home Sweet Home Skelly. I hope you got the pun. Small, but it's home sweet home. Small because it's a coffin. They're usually not very roomy. At least the ones I've seen haven't been. And I'm going to wait to find out really how roomy they are. Anyway, thought you could use a little bit of guidance on the background prep for this since it is a little different. So I'm going to show you, if you ordered a ephemera kit, say that 3 times real fast, what you may have gotten is you will get a piece of music torn from an old hymnal. Don't worry about what words are on it because it gets basically kind of covered up over here in the corner or wherever you're going to put it, but you can see hints of it peeking through. And but I did try to pick ones that had a little bit something, like this one says, "I cannot tell." And then you should have gotten a couple of pages torn from a book. I tried to get one that was lighter page and a little bit more worn page, although we're going to rip these up, so it really doesn't matter. A lot of you have gotten a piece of this tissue paper. It's a little thicker than tissue paper, and if you're lucky enough to get the logo on there, it's from my toilet paper. I order my toilet paper from Who Gives a Crap. It's great bamboo toilet paper, and it's okay in my septic. But they wrap up each roll in this paper, and so the stuff I normally order comes in papers that are black and white. So I hang on to them because I never know when I'm going to use them, and here I used it. So if you were scratching your head going, "Why did she send me something that says Who Gives a Crap?" I really do give a crap. It's just what I decided to use for this. And now I can only buy so much toilet paper, and so I've run out of the wrapper for this. And I ordered more toilet paper, but they sent me I ordered the wrong one. So I got toilet paper that was in brightly colored tissue paper. So I'll figure out something to do with that. So in place of it, you usually I sent you two. A dark piece of this and a light piece of this, but since I'm out of it, I've been throwing in these cute little bags, and so it'll do just fine. So I'm going to use a bag, and I'm going to use my toilet paper wrapper. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you get out your decoupage medium and have it sitting there. And you guys know me, I use it a lot, so I have it in a little can here, a stainless steel can with a rubber seal, and that makes it easy for me to get into, and I don't waste as much of it. Goodness knows I don't need to waste anything. But anyway, what I want to do is I want to kind of tear my paper into long strips. And even if you want to, I might stick that Who Gives a Crap on my thing. Who knows? Nobody will be able to read it, but I'll know it's there. And just going to rip it up a little bit. So I have some pieces. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my music. I want more music than I want of the title or the page number, so I'm just going to tear it across here. You want to make sure that when you apply this, that you tear even the straight edges, just to give it a more interesting look. You know, the hard straight edges aren't as pleasing to the eye, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, goodness, we're going to cover this up with all kinds of stuff. So I'm just going to rip my music into a couple of pieces. Probably should use that piece too. And I'm going to rip my book pages into some pieces, just so I have some things to stick on my background here. They don't have to be huge. This isn't a huge piece of surface. And here's my lighter one. Now, I didn't go through and read everything that was on a page I sent you, so I apologize if there's anything risque on there. I know there were a couple pages that had some curse words on them, and I didn't want to send you that. And then I'm just going to rip up my little bag. And you see, I'm doing these in more long strips. I don't want those to be the same, so I'm going to tear that a little bit more. All right, this should be enough. And all I'm going to do is get out my decoupage and get out my old brush. Somewhere I have an old brush. There it is. I like to use this brush for my decoupage. So I am just going to stick this stuff on here with decoupage medium, and it really doesn't matter what order you do it in. I think I will put, where did that go? I'm going to put this over here, and I stick it down and give it a little thin coat of decoupage medium to keep it there. And so I'm just going to, wherever I decide I want to put this stuff. So I think I will put some music here, even though it's going to get all covered up. So you're just going to build this background with all your little strips and pieces of stuff. And if you don't want to, okay, you can paint your background whatever color you'd like. Let's put some more over here. So it's really kind of easy, and it's okay if I have that little spot, I'll stick something in there. And don't make them all line up straight and everything like that. Well, I haven't used this yet, so let's get this on there. Gotta have my toilet paper tissue on there. I think maybe take it all the way down this side here. And if it overlaps, that's okay. Wrinkles are okay. Just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is a Halloween piece that definitely doesn't need to be perfect. None of them, mind you, actually. If you look at them real close, none of them are perfect. But you just have to learn how to live with the imperfections and make them work for you. Okay, let's do, let's put this on over here. So every background is going to be a little different, and that's cool, especially since we cover it up with a little bit of a paint treatment. So now I will know forever and always that my little sign says, "Who gives a crap?" Okay, I think I need another piece of music over here. I'm going to try to tear it a little smaller, except I went too small, but it'll be okay. I'll make it work. All right, cool. Maybe this piece again can go up there. That's really not a straight edge, but it's too straight to suit me, so I'm going to change it. Of course. All right. And really, it doesn't even matter if there are little pokes of the background shown through. Let's see. What else do I want? I'm going to cover up that little piece. So I'm going to put that right there. let's cover up this little guy. We only got a couple places to fill in now. Goes really quick. And let's put some of this up here. Now, if you wanted to leave more of this show through, when we do the next step, you could just not do it as heavy. That would be just fine. So last little bit here I'm going to cover. All right. So I am going to let this dry. Doesn't it look lovely? Kind of reminds me of a cow with the black and white. So I'm going to let this dry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with my hair dryer. And then for my craft heated gun, one I tell you you all need to get, and dry this and then sand the excess off the edges with my emery board. So I will be back. Okay, I'm back. You can see I got that all dried and the edges sanded clean. So now you're going to need to get out a puddle of graphite and a puddle of desert turquoise, and you're going to go need, I can talk. You're going to need to get yourself a kitchen sponge. It can be a new one. I'm just keeping this one on my painting desk. But one that has that scrubby stuff on one side. And what we're going to do, and let me see if I can get you on my palette. I'm just going to take my kitchen sponge, and on this short edge here, I'm just going to pick up some of that graphite. So you see I kind of loaded that edge a little bit. And now we'll go back to this piece, and I'm probably going to turn this around and start at the bottom. But I am just going to pull this sponge, the edge that has the graphite loaded on it, across my piece. Now, the sponge is dry. You don't have to get it wet. Don't do that, because then you'll just be wiping and you won't get the streaks on there. Okay, so I thought this was kind of cool. So see, I'm kind of disguising that background, but you can still see it. Okay, all right. So I want this to dry. So I'm going to get out my handy dandy heat it tool and dry this a little bit. I got a lot of paint down in this area over here, so it's going to take me a little minute to dry it. Or I can just take my hand and wipe it off. It doesn't matter. Okay, that's dry enough. So now I'm going to turn this sponge over to the other side that doesn't have the graphite on it, and I'm going to load the desert turquoise the same way. And I'm just going to do the same thing, only not quite as much. I think on this guy I'm going to let a little bit more of the background come through. Isn't that kind of cool? I thought it was kind of cool. So then you can go wash out your kitchen sponge and keep it for the next time you do something like this, which if you paint with me, it may be real soon. Anyway, so that's how we do the background treatment. So the next thing you want to do is you're going to let this dry. You're going to put the pattern on for your skull and crossbones and the lettering. And no, I did not do a stencil for this lettering, because the less perfect you do this lettering, the better, okay? And you can go ahead and put it on for the just the skull and crossbones and the lettering. And then what you're going to do is you're going to paint in the skull and the crossbones with warm white, and that should do it, right? I think that's all I told you to do. So easy peasy prep, kind of a fun background technique, and you'll be all ready for our class in April. So I'll see you there. Thanks. All right, so we're going to float this shading all the way around the outside edge, and that was with lamp black. And then we want to come in and we want to float shading also on the background, and that's going to be around the skull and the crossbones. And I know some of this is going to get covered up by flowers later, but it's good practice, so go ahead and do it anyway. If you need, when you get up into this, the teeth, you can just turn your brush up on its chisel edge and pull some color in there. And now I got a little bit of paint, black paint on my crossbones, so I'm just going to wipe it out with some water. And let's get up into those teeth. There we go. I accidentally loaded two sides of my brush. That's not going to work real well. Okay. I'm going to try not to go too fast. I usually do. So there's always a little bit of prep to do before the class, because otherwise we'd be here for hours. That explains why the background was already done. So, and always for Halloween Addicts Anonymous, when you buy the packet, you'll get two files. You'll get the e-packet file, and then you'll also get the prep file. The prep file disappears after about a month, because after a month, you know, you can do the painting from the e-packet and follow along on the video if you'd like. And as always, the replay video will be available as soon as this live broadcast ends. And then in a day or two, I'll have an edited version of the video up on my Sandy LaFleur YouTube channel. There are lots of videos on that YouTube channel. There are videos for how I dry brush, videos for how I build snowmen, videos for how I do Santa's beard and the brushes I use to do that. And then there are all of the Halloween Addicts Anonymous projects that have been done. And we're going into year 2. I mean, no, we're finishing up year 2, I think. Been doing Halloween Addicts Anonymous for a little while now. So there are a lot of Halloween projects, videos on there. So almost done here. So we did it around the skull, and we're doing around the crossbones. And that's all with lamp black. You see, I got it on his teeth. I'll just wipe it out. All right. So we also want to go to our lettering, and we're going to float a little bit of lamp black on the background next to the letterings. A lot of times when I do lettering, I will line a shadow, but for this one I decided that I would just float a little bit of shading on the background before I actually painted the lettering, and that goes a little bit faster. So again, with a float of lamp black. You just want to come in. Let me get a little closer up here to the lettering. So I'm just going to come in and hopefully use the right side of the brush and just tuck a little lamp black shading into the left side of each letter. So on the S, I just went in those two little swirls there. On the M, I'm going to go next to the first little leg of the M, and then I'm going to come next to the little cross thing. So I'm thinking the left side. Oh, no, I don't know my right from left. Should pay attention to my son. He said do this, and which one makes the L? That's the left. So it's going to be on the right side, but if you did the left side, it's all right. So there we go. So just touch a little shading, and it doesn't have to be perfect. On the L, you don't have to worry about the horizontal thing. Just, okay. So, and even on these little these little guys, you want to do a little bit of lamp black shading just to pop them off the background, and it'll show more when we do the actual lettering. Another S, but it doesn't have quite as big a swirl there. So just tuck in some lamp black shading. If you don't get it where I put it, that's okay. It'll be just fine. And that's how I got the name for my business, is because I say just fine a lot. So I'm going to go down the right side. I'm going inside the O. This is showing up a little more because there's a lot of blue behind it. So there we go. And the E just gets down the main vertical piece of the E. And here we have a little bit of fancy lettering. So I'm just going to tuck it in wherever I feel like it, actually, on the right side. And home will be easy because you've already done it once. All right. And just two more letters. All right. So you can already kind of see how that's going to make those letters pop off. All right. So we did our shading. We did it on the outside edges with lamp black. I'm going to try to repeat a lot. So what that does is slows me down. We did it all the way around the skull, around the crossbones, and then we tucked a little bit of shading to the right side of each of our letters. All right? So we're going to go to our skull and crossbones. And we're going to need a color we don't use very often anymore. We are going to need khaki tan. And I backed out so I could show you where we did that lamp black. And now we're going to get out some khaki tan. And you may want to get out your pictures. You have some fairly good sized pictures here. And what we're going to do is we are going to float shading on our skull and on our crossbones with khaki tan. All right. So khaki tan, we used to use it all the time, and then of course we got some other colors, and now we don't use it quite as often, but it seemed like it would work well on this piece. So regular side load floats, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to float all the way around the skull first. That's easy. All right. So I'm just going to start here at the top, And I'm going to just pull this float. And yes, some of it's going to get covered up by those darn flowers. I had a little too much water in my brush. But like I said before, it's good practice. All right. And now I'm going to go down the other side. And we're going to give this guy a little bit of character by where we put our floats. So I did around the outside edges, even down onto the teeth. And now the teeth. I've got a goober on my khaki tan is so old, I got a goober. So I'm going to float, you did here. I'm going to come on this side of this tooth. I'm going on the left side of each tooth. It's just going to get, except for this last one. So these 4 teeth are going to get a float of khaki tan on the left side. So while we let his head dry, we can go to our crossbones. Our dog, they look like dog bones to me. So I decided that this one was the one on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to float next to that one on the one that's underneath, just to set that other one on top. And I'm going to go above and below. All right. Now, each of those bones gets a little divot in the end of it here. And all you do is your khaki tan. You just kind of go in and add that little divot in the end on each of them. And it doesn't have to be rounded. It can be kind of pointy. It can be whatever comes out of your brush. All right. So now I stop saying and I'm saying all right a lot. All right. There I go again. All right. So I need to think of a new word. So I'm going to let you catch up. So we floated khaki tan around the outside of his head and on the left side of those 4 teeth, the right side of this tooth, got it? And then I floated khaki tan to separate the top bone from the bottom bone, and I added these little divots in there. So he has kind of a creased forehead, his brow. So I'm going to float that little divot in his forehead with khaki tan. So it's just between his eyes. And it's not going to look real good till we get the other stuff going on there. But then again, it's a skull. It's not supposed to look good. You're going to float a little bit of color next to his eyes. And again, if you have your picture out, that will help a lot. I'm going to go on this side and float next to his eyes. And it's just kind of a wavy, squiggly float. All right. You're going to float just a little bit under his nose. And if it gets on his nose, you can just wipe it off there. And then you also float under his eyes a little bit. Okay. I'll repeat all these places. All right. So just above his teeth, like where his cheeks would be, you want to float a little bit of color just to separate those teeth from those cheeks. Okay, so I did first on his forehead, in between his eyes. I did that little divot. I'm going to do the divots here at his temples. And there's no rhyme or reason to how they're shaped. You just want to put a little squiggly divot in there. So on both sides, on his temples, you want to go under his nose, just a touch. You're going to go under his eyes, just a touch. And then you're going to put these in to these little floats in to separate the teeth from what I would think would be his cheeks. Now, surprisingly, I did not dry brush color on his cheeks. Go figure. I should have, but I didn't. All right, so now we want to go back to our crossbones. On the crossbones, you want to float along the bottom edge. So I'm going to start up here in the joint part of the bone, and I'm going to just float khaki tan across the bottom edge. All right. And that's going to happen on both of the crossbones. All right. So we did the lower edge of the crossbones. So let's let that dry a little bit. We're going to come back and we're going to do some tints of color on him with desert turquoise. But we want to let these floats dry. So we are going to go to the lettering. I'm going to make you do lettering before you get all tired on me. So the lettering is just painted with warm white, and it's painted very sloppily. You don't have to do this perfect. I mean, look at this. It's a mess. All right? So you just want to get your liner brush. This is a number 4. It's a King Art number 4, so that may be a 2 in some other brand. I like King Art brushes. I use Royal Langnickel brushes, and I'm going to start using Dynasty brushes, but I haven't ordered them yet. So we want to get out some warm white. And I'm not going to thin it down so much. I'm going to thin it just a little so it will move. But it's not liner consistency because I want it to be more solid, more opaque. All right. So just it doesn't have to be neat, like I said. Just paint. See, that's not neat at all. Make it a little thick. The ends don't matter if they're not solid, if they're kind of feathery, that's fine. We're talking the easiest lettering you'll ever do as long as you're not trying to do it perfectly. And it's just with warm white. Got a little white on that, but that'll be okay. And let's go across, give us the crossbar on our A. Now some lettering you need to do nice, but this Definitely does not have to be nice. A skeleton painted it. That gives you a clue. All right. Now the but it is a little smaller, so you're not going to be quite as thick on it. All right. And obviously it doesn't have to be straight. Because if it was supposed to be straight, I flunked. And there is an apostrophe in there. Okay. Look at how quick and easy that part of the lettering was. So let's go down and do Home Sweet Home. The sweet might be a little bit of a booger because it's cursive, but we'll get through it. It'll be just fine. So home. Let's do our H. And obviously I'm not doing it exactly like I have the pattern on. Patterns are just suggestions, right? So on the O, normally you have that open part is at the top, but on this O, it's at the bottom, just to be different. And another easy M. I should wiggle my hand a little bit more to make it messier. All right, let's see. The E is really easy, basically just kind of straight lines. All right, now the cursive part, you do want to thin your, not thin your paint, but you do want your brush to be a little more pointed, but it's still not neat. And I don't know if you notice, but when I do letters like this, cursive especially, you don't have to do it like you're writing it with a pen. You can do part of it and then go to another area and connect the two pieces. There's no rule that says it has to be done all in one stroke. And if there is a rule, I didn't learn that rule. And if I did learn it, I'm ignoring it. So see, like this E, I go this far, and then I come back, and I finish the loop from a different way. Whatever it takes to get that lettering on there, it doesn't have to be all done in one stroke. Kudos to you if you can. And I probably could if I tried really hard. But why? So now back down to the easy stuff, where you can get fat and skinny and whatever. So there. Almost done with lettering. Can you believe it? awesome. Perfect. Well, as good as it's going to get, let's put it that way. So, and if you wanted to, you could always wait and do your lettering later, but I stuck it in here now because I wanted you to know that it didn't have to be perfect, that it could be thin, thick, wiggly, nervous, whatever. Because this piece is a Halloween piece, and skeletons can't grip a pin as easily as we can. So theirs isn't that good. So we're going to go back to our skeleton head. Let's see if I can get down here where I belong. And what we're going to do is we're going to get out some desert turquoise, which is the color that you kind of scraped on the background with your kitchen sponge. And we are going to float just a touch of desert turquoise in the bottom of each eye and the bottom of the nose. You don't want this to be real strong. You don't want it to blare desert turquoise at you. If you could see the hand motions I'm making, you'd laugh. So blend it out a little bit. And I'm just going to go in the bottom and add some of this color, desert turquoise, in the bottom of the eyes and the bottom of the nose. I also am going to float just a touch of desert turquoise in a few places on the skull and the crossbones, just to add another tint of color. So I can see that I did a little bit in these side things. It's not a real heavy float. Blend it out really well. I did a little bit on his teeth, just on this side right here. I'm going to touch a little under those cheeks. There's not a lot, just enough to give it another layer of color. And I'm also going to come along the bottom of the crossbones. And that's basically going to go just over the shading that we did with khaki tan. I'm going to touch a little in those divots too. And I need to do the bottom edge of this crossbone. So very well blended out desert turquoise. You're going to float that color in the bottom of each eye, in the bottom of the nose, and as it dries, it's not quite as bright. And I'm going to go in these little divots on his temples, and I'm going to go in the little divots on the end of the crossbones, and I'm going to go across the lower edge of the crossbones. So we're going to do some highlighting next. So you want to get out your favorite brush to dry brush with. We'll float some highlighting, but for right now we are just going to dry brush some highlighting. We're going to do that with titanium white, snow white. It's a little bit brighter than warm white, so we'll actually be able to see it. I better put it in a different spot than my warm white is. So I'm going to just dry brush some color, some warm white. I'm going to go in the top of the crossbones. Just scrub a little warm titanium white. I'm so used to using warm white. And it brightens it up a little bit. So, and I'm going to go on the top of this one. If it gets on the background a little bit, it'll be okay. And now you can see why I usually don't base anything in solid, because there is so much stuff that goes on top of it it's kind of a waste of time to base it in solid. I want to go in this area between those divots on his temples and his eyeballs, and then down onto his cheeks. So if you can get in there with your dry brush, do that. And I'm also going to do across the top of his head. And I think you can see that pretty good. All right. We needed to dry brush a little bit of warm white inside the eyes and the nose. So I'm going to dry brush just a little bit of warm white inside the eyes and inside the nose, just a little bit there. Then you can wash your dry brush out. We are going to float a little bit of warm titanium white. Gotta catch myself, I keep saying warm, but we're using titanium because we're highlighting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to float to highlight those divots at his temples. So just a quick float. You can kind of clean them up a little bit if you need to. I'm going to float this one, kind of get the corner of your brush up here and float under this divot in his forehead. So you get up on the corner of your, the chisel edge of your brush when you're above the eye, and then just kind of get some color up there above his eyes. I'm going to float on his teeth, just on the right side, just to make them stand out a little bit more, except when I get to this guy. Just the tooth on the right side, you just want to float a highlight on the left side of that tooth. We want to go to the crossbones. We're going to float under those divots just to make them stand out a little more. We have one more place to float highlighting, and that's going to be across the top of those crossbones. So I'm going to tell you again where I floated highlighting on the skull, and that's going to give time for my floating on these divots to dry a little bit. So I did on these little divots on his temples. I did on underneath the divot in his forehead. Oh, as long as we're here, we might as well do those little divots that are his cheeks, just to make them stand out a little bit more. So I added a spot. And then I did the right side of foreteeth and the left side of the tooth that's on the far right. We're going to go under his eyes also, under that float that we did of his eyes. I'm not going to go right by his nose because I can't get my brush in there. But just highlight that little, those little things under his eye sockets. So now I can come back and float the top of my crossbones with titanium white, snow white. That's going to clean up the edges a little bit. unless you float crooked like I did. It's amazing that the titanium will show up so well. Then I'm going to go across the top of this lower one. So there's a little crack in his skull, and you can put it wherever you'd like. I did mine like right here. All I did was take my liner brush and some lamp black, and I did a little crack in the top of his skull. It reminds me kind of a tornado. Remember years ago we used to do tornado eyes? So just a little crack in his skull. There is a spider web that is painted in his eyes, in one eye. So we're going to line that spider web with thinned, warm white. Now you can put the pattern on, or you can wing it. It's really easy. You just pick a point to start from. I'm just going to do a line like that, and then a line to meet it. It kind of reminds me of chicken feet. Okay, and then in between those lines, now I didn't take it all the way up to the top. I'm just going to add those little curved things, part of the web. And mine's a little thick. I'm not staying up on the tip of my brush enough. Yours should look way better, right? So that left eye gets that spider web lined in it. The right eye and the nose get a little edge lined inside with warm white. So you just kind of take your liner brush and line a little edge inside that right eye and the nose. We're almost done with the skull and crossbones. So we need to add a highlight dot in the top of each eye. See if you can keep your hands out of it. And then I did this, I'm not sure if you need to, but I did a little dot at the intersections where the web kind of intersected the main straight line of the web. And you don't have to do this, but it's on there, and so I have to tell you about it. But it just kind of adds another dimension to that web. All right, so we did, we lined that spider web in the left eye. We did this, I want to call it like the cut edge if this were a jack-o'-lantern. But the little side edge in the right eye and the nose, that's just a little line of warm white or titanium white, whichever white you stick your brush in. A couple of dots as highlights inside the eyes, and then just some little dots on the spider web where the curved lines intersect with the straight lines. Just one more thing to do to these crossbones, and then you can go ahead and put the pattern on for the flowers. So what I want to do is I want to separate the top bone from the bottom bone just a little bit more. So I'm going to do a very soft float of lamp black. It's going to go right over that khaki tan float we did. But you want to blend it out quite a bit. So I'm just going to come across here to set that backbone back even further. Okay. And then it looks like I also just touched a little bit of this lamp black in those divots on the ends of the bones. I didn't do the whole divot. I just kind of touched my brush into the center of each of those divots. So let's see if those dots should be dry enough for us to go ahead and put the pattern on for our leaves and flowers. So let's get this on. I'm going to need my white paper. It's my old white paper. I'm actually going to pull those up a little bit. So 3 flowers and a few leaves. Let's see, where's my pen? Let's use this one. So I'm going to put the circle on and the pattern on for each petal. It's probably going to go right over the best looking shading that you have on your skull. And a leaf. And another flower. All right. See if I did my graphite paper the right way. I have been known to mess up. Let's get our flower on the other side as I trace a leaf. And 2 more leaves. Awesome. So we're going to paint the leaves in with Irish moss. So just a quick base coat of Irish moss. Again, it doesn't have to be opaque. There's highlighting and shading on them, so don't worry about them having them completely solid. And if they get into the flowers a little bit, that's all right, because the flower petals will cover them up. So just a few leaves. We're doing them first because they're behind. Okay, how many more leaves do I have? There are 4 on this side. And 3 on the left side. And yes, they go on top of the skull a little bit. One more leaf. So these are all painted with Irish moss. So while we let those leaves dry, all 7 of them, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our lettering. And we're going to float a little bit of shading on our lettering with khaki tan, that brown color. And if you get out your picture, I'm sure you can see it. In this S, I'm just going to go in the bottom. The M, I'm just doing in the bottom. Adds another little layer of dimension. The A, I'm going to go in the bottom, but then I'm also going to float on the little, crossbar, where it goes next to the left side of the A, and I'm going to go above and below it. On the L's, I'm just going to go on the horizontal bar next to where it connects to the vertical one. So basically, you can put the shading wherever you'd like. I'm telling you where I put it, but if you want to put it somewhere else, or if you misunderstood and it got somewhere else, no big deal. So on this little B, it's just going to be on the curved part next to the vertical part. The U, just in the bottom. And the T goes in the bottom, and then it's going to go above and below the crossbar. I bet you know where the I is going to go. In the bottom of the T, and above and below the crossbar. And then in the bottom of the S. So basically bottom of the S, bottom of the M, bottom of the A, but then also on the horizontal crossbar you want to go on the left side where it connects to the back part of the A, and then above and below that crossbar. Do you want to go on the L, just on the horizontal, just right where it connects to the vertical. And the B goes on the curved part next to the vertical. The U gets in the bottom. The T, bottom, above, and below the crossbar. The I is in the bottom. Again, another T, so that's bottom, above, and below the crossbar. And the S is in the bottom. Easy peasy. So, home sweet home, you should be able to figure these out without even listening. The H is going to go above and below the crossbar. So I'm going to go ahead and go do both the H's. The O I'm going to do in the bottom where the break is. So many little details. This M is just like the one that we did originally. Bottom. Bottom. The E is going to go, it's going to go on the vertical one underneath the horizontal and above the horizontal. And if you wanted to, you could go in and make it look like the middle horizontal goes all the way across, but you don't have to. So I'm going to go below, above, and maybe tuck a little bit in above there. The cursive gets a little trickier, so you definitely should have your picture out for that. So I'm going to go in the bottom of the S, and where the tail of the S sweeps over to connect to the W, I'm going to go above and below that. I'm going to go on the W. It has that little curlicue to make the middle, so I'm going to go on either side of that curlicue. I'm also going to touch a little bit in the top of that, the right side of the W. I'm going to go on the E's, right where they the curve to form the E, and where it connects to the T. I'm going to go in the tip. I didn't make this tail on this T as long as the original. Oh well. I'm going to go in the tip of that tail and above and below the crossbar, just to add a little bit more interest to our lettering. So we're going to float some highlighting on our leaves. Get down here where the leaves are. And it's going to go across the top, whatever you decide is the top edge of the leaf. And that's going to be with Margarita. Margarita, I like the color, I like the drink. It's good all the way around. I may have to have one later. So I'm going to float. I'm going to decide that the left side of this leaf is the top. So I'm going to float on the left side, a highlight. And then I'm also going to just pop over a little bit and give it a center vein line. This one's pretty easy. Top edge. And then drop down and give a center vein line. Leaf number 3, do the top edge. This is all with Margarita. So those 3 leaves are done. So let's go over here and decide what our top edge is on these leaves. These top edges kind of face each other on these 2 leaves up here. I'm going to do the top edge, and then I'm going to come over here and do the opposite side is going to be the top edge. This one's easy. We know what the top edge is. And this one I'm going to make the right side be the top edge. So while we let that dry, we are going to go ahead and paint in this pink flower. You can paint in the petals with fuchsia pop. If you don't have fuchsia pop, royal fuchsia, any kind of nice bright pink will do. I chose fuchsia pop. I don't know why. So I'm just going to base in those petals. Again, they don't have to be opaque. And which is a good thing, because fuchsia pop is not a very, it's kind of transparent. But it's okay because we have a lot of stuff that goes on top. So I'm going to paint in those 5 petals with fuchsia pop. And I'm okay if it has a little texture. It's fine with me. If you want to shape your petals differently, that's okay too. I tried to give them a little bit of interest by not making them just nice flat oval petals. One more petal on this pink one. All right, so pink one painted in. Let's go over here and paint in our blue one, and that's done with desert turquoise, which we already have out. It's going to cover a little better. So we'll just base in those petals, and this, the blue one is underneath the purple one, so you don't have to base in those petals completely that are underneath. Okay. Thankfully, I didn't put a whole lot of flowers on here. Just part of the petal there. And the purple one is going to be painted in with purple petal. If you don't have purple petal, you can use purple cow. That's a pretty common color. And it covers really well. One of the best of these flowers colors. All right. Purple petals, a little pinker than purple cow. Which makes it a little different. And last petal. All right, so now we can go back to our leaves. We're going to need black forest green. And you're going to float shading on the leaves. The shading's basically just going to go opposite of where we floated that highlighting. So it's going to go lower edge, and then we're just going to pop over and do the center vein line. lower edge. It should be easy to figure out because you already have the top edge done. I'm going to turn my guy around. And then one more on this side. And center vein line. Quick and easy leaves. So let's do the other side. We'll get onto the lower edge in that center vein line. And I'll turn my guy so I can get to these leaves. Lower edge and center vein line. And that makes your highlights stand out a little bit better. So I'm going to do what I'm considering the lower edge on that top leaf and have quite enough paint in my brush to suit me. I use, Sandy Fowler's asking if I use plain water for floating, and what I use is some flow improver, Winsor Newton acrylic flow improver, and this looks kind of dirty because I've been using it for a while, but it's like an extender, so it makes the floats go a little bit easier, especially if you're in hot areas where your floats dry really fast. So this acts like an extender. If you've ever used Josonia's extender, it works like that. The only difference is this is mixed with water, and so it doesn't get that buildup and it dries quickly. So and so you don't, the buildup, we've used Josonia's extender, and I haven't used it in years, so I don't know if it's changed or not. But you could do a few layers with the extender, and then you had to stop and give a coat of glazing medium and let it dry so that you could go back on top of it. This is mixed with water. I use distilled water to mix it with. And what it does is it gives me just a little bit more open time on my floats. And it helps liner work to flow a little easier. So if you take a class with me in person, you always get a sample of it to use, because I've been using it for years, and it's just made floating easier for me and liner work easier for me. I do sell it on the website in two forms. There's a 2-ounce bottle that is pre-mixed, ready to go. You just squirt it in your little dish or little cup, and what you do is, where you would normally load your flat brush with clear water, instead you load it with the flow improver. Everything else stays the same. You load it with the flow improver, you blot your brush out, corner load and blend, just like you did if you were using clear water, but you just substitute the flow improver for the clear water. So I sell it pre-mixed. It's ready to go. You just squirt it out of the bottle into your little thing and go to town painting. Or I sell it in a concentrate where you can mix it with water and make your own 2-ounce bottle. So anyway, yeah, I do use flow improver to help with my floats. So while we let these flowers dry, what we're going to do is, well, we haven't been on the flowers for a while, but we're going to take our liner brush and some thinned margarita, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just line a nice little detail line across the top of each leaf, just to define the top edge a little bit more. I just did the top edge. So that top edge that you highlighted, you just reinforce that edge and maybe add a little curl at the end with your liner brush and thinned margarita. And that just adds a little bit more character to those leaves. Like I said, defines them a little bit, pops them off of that background a little more. So we're going to go to our flowers now, and we're going to float highlighting, and I think you can see it here, on the tips of each flower petal with whatever the base coat was plus warm white. So the pink flower was fuchsia pop or whatever pink you used. So I'm going to corner load into fuchsia pop, blend it just a couple times on my palette, and then corner load into warm white. So I get a little bit lighter value of that pink. And I'm just going to float a highlight. And now you can see why it didn't need to be opaque, because that highlight kind of fills that in and makes it so you're not staring at the background so much that's popping through. So each petal gets a highlight. Let me get down here on camera of fuchsia pop plus warm white or titanium white, whichever one you happen to stick your brush in. We're just looking for a lighter value of that base color. The blue flower was based in desert turquoise, so that's going to be desert turquoise plus a little bit of white. Either one will do, either white. So a lighter value of desert turquoise is what we're looking for. And just a little bit of a highlight in the top of each of those petals. And that starts to make them look really pretty, I think. But what do I know? I keep saying I don't paint flowers, but somehow I keep getting painting flowers. So I think I'm starting to paint flowers now. All right. And of course, the purple one will get highlighted with purple petal plus warm white. Remember where I put my purple petal. So a lighter value of that purple. I could have brought in 3 more colors, but we do so little with it that it just made more sense to just lighten up our base coat with a touch of white. And here's where you can fix the shape of your petals. And make sure I'm still on camera. I'm trying really hard to pay attention to that, because sometimes I get a little off camera. All right. So there, flowers are highlighted. So we need to float a little bit of shading at the base of each petal. And on the pink petal, that's going to be done with cranberry wine. So at the base of each petal, each of the pink petals, you just want to float some cranberry wine. It's basically up against what's going to be the center. Looking better already. So our blue flower is going to get shading floats of true blue. So obviously you don't need a whole lot of this out. Just a dot will do. So just at the base of each of the blue petals, a float of true blue. And the base, at the base of each purple petal, you're going to float shading with purple iris, if I can find it. Now, if you don't have purple iris, you could use dioxazine purple. That would work just fine. It's a little deeper. Oh, you can't hardly see my highlight on those. It'll be all right. We have some more stuff to do to it. Of course. No, I don't leave anything alone. So there's the shading on those. So if you happen to have a filbert comb or rake brush handy, what we're going to do is we're going to brighten up those highlights on the tips of the petals by stroking just a little bit of highlighting with warm white or titanium white, again with a little touch of the base color. So this time you're, instead of fuchsia pop plus warm white, you're doing warm white plus a touch of fuchsia pop. So you want it to be a barely pink tint. And all I'm going to do is take my brush and just stroke some detail, some lighter detail lines on those petals from the tips in. Now if you don't have a filbert rake brush handy, you could do it kind of quickly with your liner brush and thinned warm white plus a touch of fuchsia pop. But this just gave a little texture to our leaves, our petals. Leaves. Must be getting tired. And the same thing is going to happen to the blue flower and the purple flower with your filbert comb or filbert rake, whichever brand you happen to be using. And so you're going to pick up the white plus whatever the base color was and make a really light value of the base color. So on the blue, if it's not showing up, you just need to add a little bit more warm white or white, either one. But this just adds a little interest, a little texture. Ouch, that didn't feel good. I'll try not to do that again. And then on the purple, of course, it's purple petal. It's warm white plus purple petal. And you thought these were just going to be quick, easy flowers. Ha! Fooled you. I thought these were going to be quick, easy flowers. Fooled me. All right. So each of the petals gets an outline. And again, it's going to be whatever the base color was plus white. And you're just going to outline each one of the petals. That's with your liner brush. So fuchsia pop plus white. I'm just going to very quickly outline each petal just to define it even more. Just real quick, and it'll clean up the edges then of your petals too. If you got a little carried away with the rake brush. The blue one is desert turquoise plus some white. I'm still on camera. Doesn't have to be perfect. Yay. I love it now that I don't try to make anything perfect. And then purple petal. And warm white or titanium white. I'm going to always say warm white because that's my go-to white. But that really helps the petals. All right. Just a few more things to do. So while we have the fuchsia pop and the blue and the purple out, what I want you to do is take your flat brush and make a little bit of a wash of fuchsia pop, and just here and there on the background put a little bit of that pink wash just to put those colors in some spots around the background. And you can do the same thing. You don't need to do it with desert turquoise because that's already there. But with the purple petal, just thin down some. You want to make sure it's nice washy. And that can just go. The purple petal is going to be a little light, so make sure you wash it down quite a bit. But just here and there, drag a little bit of those two colors in the background. There's a stripe that goes around the whole border, and that's just done with desert turquoise while we can still get in it. So thin down some desert turquoise, and here again, doesn't have to be perfect. And in fact, I think I stop if it's going to run into something. So just line that little border stripe. Thankfully, I'm not doing it perfectly. Where did I thin down that? Desert turquoise. So just a little stripe. I'm letting my petals dry. Hit or miss. It doesn't have to even be a perfect line, okay? It can be hit and miss. This is where Flow Improver comes in handy, because you can line just a little bit further than you can if you're just mixed with clear water. All right, let's stipple in our centers with golden straw, the centers of our flowers. Just get out your favorite stipple brush, and you're going to need golden straw. You want to get out some canyon orange. And if you need fresh warm white, you probably want to get that out. But I am just going to stipple in nice round centers, first with golden straw. Always start smaller than you want them to be, because you know you always get bigger than you want them to be if you don't do that. So just nice round centers with golden straw. All 3 flowers. And don't wash out your brush. You can just wipe it out a little bit. Pick up a little bit of your white and stipple a little bit of a highlight in the top of each of those centers. And again, don't wash your brush out. Just wipe it out. And pick up a little bit of canyon orange. And you're going to stipple canyon orange in the bottom of each of those centers. Now with your liner brush, if you can still get in your lamp black, there are some little dots of lamp black that are just tapped on with your liner brush and lamp black. They go in the bottom of each center. So just kind of like a little crescent moon shape. And I'm doing it on the wrong side from the original, but that's all right. It'll be okay. Not even doing very good job tapping. But just add a few little dots of lamp black. That stripe that we lined around the outside edge, what we want to do is we want to line a highlight. Of course we do, right? What is my favorite stipple brush? My favorite stipple brush is the same brush I used to dry brush with. And that's that Langnickel short round sable brush. And I'm out of stock with them right now, but they've shipped out. I'm not sure when I'm going to get them, because I never know how UPS, if it's going to deliver when it says it's going to deliver or not. But you're going to take Desert Turquoise, which was the color of that stripe, mix a little bit of warm white, and just through the center of that stripe that you added around the border, you want to line a little highlight on that. You spend all that time putting that stripe on there, you might as well be able to see it, right? You did all that hard work. All right. So just a quick little highlight through the center of those stripes. And I do believe, let me look over my directions. I do believe that we can call this guy done. Oh, the spider. Karen, thank you so much. I'm not done. We have to do our little spider. So let me get a little close here. Spider is so hard. Oh, he's so difficult. All we need to do, a little spider. He was the last thing I added, so that's kind of not surprising that I forgot him. You just want to line a little piece of web, paint a big oval, hopefully one that's not so full of water. I'm going to get that off. And paint one that's not so full of water. A big oval that connects to the web. A little head. And then using the very tippy tip of your liner brush, you want to give him some legs. Thank you for the reminder, Karen. I would have let you go without showing you the spider. Those are not very good legs. And then all I do is pick up a little canyon orange on my liner brush and do a little touch of canyon orange in the left side of his body and his head. So easy peasy. Just paint him with white, line his little legs, 8 of them, and add a little stroke of canyon orange in the left side of his body and his head. And now you can be done. There you go. So I start my spiel all over. Thank you so much. Thank you for reminding me about the spider. And I hope to see you next month. I believe it's May 10th is when we'll be meeting again. I hope you can hold out until May to get your next fix. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me, for hanging out. Those of you who spent the whole time here with me, I appreciate you. And again, this replay will be available as soon as I end this live, and then in a couple days I'll have the edited version on my YouTube channel. So have a great evening. I appreciate y'all being here, and I'm going to stop now.